Hello, this is Jonathan Meade, co-founder of CreateIT, representing the CreateIT IUPUI School of Infomatics and Regenstrief team for the Hoosier Healthcare Innovation Challenge, Challenge number 2, CCD deduplication and consolidation. What you see on the screen right now is a model of the application that we wrote for this challenge. The way we've written the program to work is the client will be sending into the application, into the API, a new merge request. The API in this example, we initially coded the application with a REST API, but this layer is flexible. It can be swapped out for a SOAP API or a Java API, anything that the client requires. The client sends in the new merge request, and the API returns back with a unique identifier for that merge request, and then the client proceeds to insert CCD records into the API using that merge ID. Once they've uploaded all the CCD records that they need to be merged and consolidated together, they will issue a command to get the merged CCD. The API will then communicate with the rules engine, which is the heart of our application. The rules engine goes through a series of steps executing rules against the list of CCDs to consolidate the information. The first step in the process is to execute the pre-format rules. Pre-format rules are algorithms that are issued against the list of CCDs that get the CCDs ready to be processed into a single document. An example of how we use pre-format rules is one that we wrote called strip text. The strip text rule goes through the CCDs and removes the human readable text portion of the CCD. We'll get back to what we do with that later. The next rule that is executed is the primary rule. The primary rule is a rule that looks at the list of CCDs, chooses one of those CCDs, and sets it as the master that everything else will be consolidated against. The reason for the primary rule is to ensure that no matter how badly the rest of the application fails or how badly the rest of the sections are merged together, we will be returning the client something. We will be returning at least one valid CCD document. The next set of rules that are executed are the merge and deduplicate rules. These rules look at either the entire CCD, a section of the CCD, or even down to individual records within the CCD to merge and consolidate and deduplicate information. The last type of rule that's executed is the post-format rules. The post-format rules take the master CCD, what we're returning, and they ensure that it is in a format that is usable to the client. An example of where we use post-format rules is just as we stripped the text out with the pre-format rules, we add that human-readable text back in with the post-format rules. The whole time the rules engine is executing, we're firing audit events at our audit system. For our audit system, we chose to use MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database that is very good at storing very large amounts of data. The reason for a NoSQL database is that we need to be able to write a large amount of data very, very quickly to the database, and that's something that a transactional database like MS SQL or Oracle does not do very well. So for every rule that is executed, we actually fire one audit event at the database. That audit event has not only the rule that was executed against the list of CCDs, but it also contains the list of CCDs and the current master CCD. So there's a lot of information in that audit event going to that. There's two purposes for us storing that much information in the audit event. The first purpose is in case of their legal discovery. We can go back and we can determine exactly what happened, what chain of events went on when we were doing the consolidation. The other thing that it allows us to do is it allows us to analyze our deduplication system and tweak and correct any deduplication algorithms that we've written to ensure that we're doing it in the best possible way. Once all of the rules have been executed against the list of CCDs and we have one merged master CCD, we return that to the client. On this server here, I have a program that I wrote that uses the rules engine to execute a set of merges. I'm just going to go ahead and kick off this program here. It's just a simple little Windows console program that is going to start the process of merging those records together. While we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and pull up our database so that I can show you that we have an incrementing number of records being fired into that database. So our MongoDB audit system is up and running, and we can actually use that information. I'll show you one of the records just so you can see the large amount of data that is actually stored in one audit record. Yes, that was one audit record. Once we get to a point where this is running in production, some of that information can be pared down, and it might make things a little bit easier for storing this system and looking at it at later times. As you see in the background here, this is also showing us the times that we were completing those merges in. As you can see, most of the times are sub 1 second on those merge jobs, and this is actually also not just doing the merge and deduplication, but we are serially writing to the database at this point too. In a production environment, we could definitely be spinning off those audit events into their own separate threads so that they don't affect the amount of time that it takes to consolidate the records. This next window that I'm going to bring in is just a very simple web application that we wrote to demo our rules engine and how it works. This isn't necessarily something that you would see in production. It is just an example of that we can use to actually hit the rules engine API and do some consolidations. Up here at the top, you'll see the different categories of rules that we execute when doing a merge and deduplication. We have the pre-format rules, the primary rule, the merge and deduplication rules, and then the post-format rules. Down below this black line, you'll see these are the 3 CCD documents that we are going to be merging together, and then we have the final merged CCD document. This is already run once, so this final deduplicated CCD is actually a CCD that is executed with all of the rules on. Let me quickly open up this CCD in Notepad so that we get a better view of the consolidated CCD. Something that we did just for testing purposes and then also for demonstration purposes is we added some comments into the finalized CCD. Every time we execute a merge or deduplication rule, we're inserting this comment here saying that we merged it and what rule we used to do that. So you'll see we're under the problem section of the CCD, and this entry was added by the problems, the test problem section rule that we are using. If I go back to my demonstration page and uncheck the problem section, run this again, takes a little bit longer to run in the actual graphic user interface. And we will paste that into here. And you'll see that if we go back to the problem section, that it no longer has those comments in there, and that is because this is actually just taken straight from the CCD3. The entries in here are not consolidated at all because we disabled that rule. Something to note about our merge and deduplication rules, you notice that some of them were actually being applied to entire sections. If I look at these two rules specifically down here, the social history alcohol use and the social history smoking rule, those are actually being applied to individual sections inside the social histories, or individual entries inside the social history section. The alert section, medication section, and problem section, it was fairly easy to write a algorithm that would consolidate the entries within those sections without, and deduplicate them without, and do it an entire section at a time. But in the social history, a lot of the entries are very dissimilar. For example, alcohol use and smoking. Writing rules on how to deduplicate those and how to ensure that you don't have conflicting information in those can get rather difficult. For example, with alcohol use is really just denoted as a freeform text field within the CCD. And what we did to deduplicate those records and provide something that's clinically relevant is we looked for keywords within that alcohol use section. So, for example, we keyed off of the word social or light, and we weighted those at a certain level. And then we also looked for words like heavy or alcoholic or daily and rated those words at a different level. And by doing that, we can kind of weight which of the CCD has the most important information. So we want to say, I mean, if this person is an alcoholic and they've reported that they're an alcoholic to one person, we want to report that as alcoholic and heavy alcohol use, and not necessarily just report that the person had said that they don't drink, for example, in another CCD. That is just one way of consolidating the alcohol use section. The good thing about our system is it's flexible. We can take out this rule and we could insert another rule that would deduplicate and consolidate that alcohol use section differently based on different customer requirements. If you want to take a deeper look into how we wrote these rules, these example rules that we have here, you can take a look at the code that is up on our GitHub repository. The link to that is in the document that we submitted with this project. I'd like to thank you for your time spent looking at what we've done, and please feel free to email me at jmeade@createit-inc.com if you have any questions. Again, thank you very much.